Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Heidi Klevit here, the host of the System Simplified podcast, where I interview top founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And today's episode is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group, where we create, document, and implement processes and procedures so businesses can grow and thrive. And today's guest is Heidi Ganahl. Hi, Heidi.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's so great to have you on this podcast. I must say, we're going to have a great conversation, and listeners have to wait until I give the full bio, but it's going to be a conversation about entrepreneurship, about making sure that there is the next generation of entrepreneurs, right? It's about really taking a stand and doing something for the community of entrepreneurs. So I'm excited about this conversation. But before we start, we have to give a big shout out to Jessica Fialkovich, who introduced us. And I'm going to include the wonderful podcast I did with Jessica in the show notes. And so thank you, Jessica, for this introduction.
Yes, Jessica's wonderful. She has built an amazing business and brand and is one of the smartest people in our country when it comes to knowing how to sell your business and prepare your business for sale.
Absolutely. She also wrote a book about it. So I agree with you 100%. All right, Heidi. So let's first of all introduce you properly. So you're a well-known entrepreneur and CEO. You're a mom of 4, which is a whole profession by itself, right? It's a whole hat, which is amazing. And you were also the nominee for the Colorado, one of the nominees for the Colorado governor in 2022, which is amazing. And you have a great story. So I'm not going to read the story because I want you to tell the story of what happened when you were young and how you got started. And how you started. You are the founder of Camp Bow Wow and the Fight Back Foundation, Moms Fight Back, and SheFactor. And your business, Camp Bow Wow, was named to the Inc. 500,000 list for the fastest growing companies in the country 5 years in a row, which is incredible. And you were named one of Fortune magazine 10 most promising entrepreneurs and among the top women entrepreneurs in the country, which is really amazing. I mean, all those accolades and everything that you've done. And you sold Camp Bow Wow in 2014 to really have your attention on philanthropy, politics, and giving back to the community. And you really care. I can tell that just by talking to you before the show. And that's what I'm excited about, is really talking about your journey so we can inspire others, and also about all the actions that you are doing in order to create a better society. Let's jump into it.
Well, thank you. I've had quite a journey. My life has been quite an adventure, but it started with just a passion for creating and for a love of animals and figuring out how to solve a problem that I thought we had here in our country, which was taking care of our dogs when we traveled or had to be at work all day. And so my first husband and I came up with the idea to create a happy place for dogs that you could drop them off. They could play all day. Back then in the early 90s, doggy daycare wasn't really a thing. People were like, you're going to get paid to babysit dogs? That's crazy. But we wrote up the business plan, and my husband was very entrepreneurial as well. And so we had a lot of fun doing that, but we were young. We didn't have a lot of money or resources. And about 6 months after we wrote the business plan, Brian was killed in a small plane crash. And obviously my life changed dramatically after that. I was 27 at the time. He was turning 25. And obviously my priorities changed a lot. And I wanted to take some time off and figure out how to heal and what to do with my life going forward after that. But a few years later, my little brother came to me and said, you seem really lost. You seem to have lost your passion. Why don't you pull out that business plan that you and Brian wrote together and see if you can't get it going? And so my brother helped me with that first location. And that was in 2000. We started one, then we opened a second location. And then I started franchising in 2003. And just things took off. It was good timing. It was a lot of tenacity. It was staying focused on what made the dogs happy and the customers happy. And we built an amazing franchise for about 15 years. And it took to build it to the point where we sold it in 2014.
Wow. So what would be some points that were successful in terms of building the franchise? Like what would be like a key points that made it successful that you were able to then make it successful and sell it?
Well, one of the reasons I love the work you're doing is because it's so important when you want to grow your business to build systems and processes and know how to duplicate your success or what you've done. And that's the franchise model, right? And that's why I loved the franchise model, because I was very visionary. I am very visionary. I love building brands. And I needed great operators to be able to execute my vision. And so I had to make sure to document everything we did and what worked and what didn't, so that A, we could prevent new franchisees from making mistakes that we had already made and knew to avoid, but B, so that we could duplicate the success we had, what worked, what made the business tick, what made people excited about bringing their dogs to Camp Bow Wow. And so a lot of the magic is in really hard work, the tenacity of building systems and processes and staying committed to those and not getting thrown off track when you're building a franchise or any kind of business.
Absolutely. And so what made you want to sell the business in 2014?
Well, I was a single mom for a long time with Tori, my little one, and got set up on a blind date, and we hit it off, and we ended up getting married and had Holly, who's my second oldest. She's 13 now. And then we tried for one more and got twins. And so we have Jack and Jenna, who are 11. So at this point in time, after 2012, I had a 3-year-old, brand new baby twins, and a teenager, and trying to run this business. And it was a bit too much. So I decided that Camp Bow Wow deserved the right leadership to help it continue to grow. And my kids deserved a mom that could focus on helping them and being there for them. So I decided to back off of the business, and at first looked for a strategic partner and wasn't sure that I wanted to sell it, but needed some help in growing it. But I met VCA and the founders of VCA, and which is a big veterinary chain, and just really aligned with their values and really enjoyed working with Bob, the CEO at the time. And so they talked to me about actually selling and staying on as CEO for a couple of years. So that's what we did. And then they ended up selling to Mars, the big private company, and that's who actually owns Camp Bow Wow now.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Well, that must have given you like a real sense of accomplishment.
Thank you. It was wonderful. It was sad, of course, to hand off the keys to the kingdom to my baby, but it was the right timing for me. And I was very passionate about helping small business owners navigate through legislation and regulation. That was something I didn't set out to be passionate about, but I saw the effect on the business and how hard it was to grow and for my franchisees to grow. So I ended up joining a group called Job Creators Network. Bernie Marcus, the founder of Home Depot, founded that group to help small business owners advocate for common sense legislation and giving them the freedom to grow their business. And that was my first venture into politics.
Okay, and then what happened?
Then I was also very passionate about education. I was on the board of directors for the University of Colorado Foundation and the business school there. And someone said, you should run for regent. You love politics and you're passionate about education. I was like, what the heck does a regent do? Well, in Colorado, we elect our board of regents. And so you have to run for political office. And I ran statewide in 2016 for the board of regents. I'd be one of 9 regents. And you oversee the system, the CU system, University of Colorado system, which is a huge economic engine in Colorado. It contributes over $12 billion to the economy every year. And it's a $5 billion budget and one of the largest employers in the state. So I ran and I won. I wasn't supposed to win. I won against all odds and became a regent and was a regent for 6 years. I just finished up that term. In the meantime, I was the only elected statewide Republican in Colorado. So I got a lot of requests from people to run for something bigger. And so I ended up running for governor in last year's election in 2022 and won the primary and went up against our incumbent governor here. And we made one of my focuses advocating for small business owners and making sure that we had the ability to grow our economy in Colorado and not just grow the government. And so that was one of my key platforms, very passionate about it. And didn't win the election, but had a tremendous time meeting people across the state and advocating for things that I care about, and will continue to do so. I just launched my own podcast, Unleashed, to talk about politics and how to navigate it here in our state.
That's great. So Heidi, what do you see as the biggest obstacles that small businesses encounter in today's economy, in today's environment? Like what is it that are the most like the points that you really want to change, and that if you could change, that it will make a big difference?
Well, one of the primary things is the involvement of government, whether it's the local zoning board not allowing us to open a new location for Camp Bow Wow, or the state and providing more and more regulation and fees and taxes on small business owners, and not really understanding how small businesses work, and that there's only so much money in a bucket, and we want to take great care of our employees and we want to take great care of our customers. But when unelected bureaucrats or agencies or politicians decide to put mandates on our businesses or add taxes and fees to them, that's less money for us to pay our employees better, to provide better services for our customers. And so just really common sense legislation and making sure that the laws that are passed support entrepreneurial activity and support small business owners and support even large corporations hiring more people and providing more benefits.
Absolutely. So what advice would you give to entrepreneurs that are listening to us now and say, well, yeah, but I'm just like one against this big, massive, government, right? Or this massive, I try to make it count. I mean, well, obviously the first advice should be vote, right? So let's say I voted, but it's still passed, that legislation still passed. Is there really something, how can I make a difference? Is there anything that I can do to make a difference? What would you say to those entrepreneurs that are thinking that way?
Well, first, I empathize and understand that it's a difficult time to speak up in our political environment and to advocate for yourself. But at the end of the day, no one is more important in speaking out about small business and entrepreneurship than the actual entrepreneurs and small business owners. They need their voice to be heard. So I would say start local, go to your city council meetings, go to your boards and committees. There's tons of boards and commissions and committees in your local municipalities. So where your businesses are, join one of those boards, volunteer to be a part of the conversation, join your local chamber of commerce, talk to your local politicians. So meet with your county commissioners, your city council people, just take them out to coffee and tell them about your business. Give them a tour of your business. Let them come hang out and meet your employees and hear from them. So make it local. The other thing is you can join national advocacy groups like Job Creators Network. You can go to their website and learn a lot about how they help small business owners and advocate for them. You can also get involved in a larger way. You can join groups that have more of a state presence or a national presence. There's lots of them. And basically, if you're in a certain industry, you should definitely be part of your industry associations. They usually have lobbyists and keep you up to date on what's happening in government so that you can stay ahead of it. But also talk to your employees about it, educate your employees about how important it is to stay engaged and understand what's happening. And finally, just don't be shy, get involved, get engaged. It's really, really important. It affects your business a lot.
It really does. It really does. It's really raising your voice and communicating, and things do happen. Sometimes it feels like maybe it's hopeless. Maybe you communicated 1, 2, 3 times and nothing happens. But from my experience, if you do just that, if you meet with the city council, know who your city council is, right? Be involved. The Chamber of Commerce, in my opinion, from my experience, definitely depends on the chamber and which city you belong, which chamber you belong to. But some of them are definitely have a lot of advocacy. I mean, bipartisan, just like really working towards the helping the entrepreneurs and the small businesses in the city you are in. So I definitely recommend that. I've seen it make a difference, and at least you're feeling you're doing something about it, right? As opposed to being doing nothing and then feeling that it's just affecting you day in and day out.
That's right. And if we want to protect our free markets and free enterprise economy for our children and our grandchildren, we have to speak up now as things are changing dramatically and the government's getting more and more power and control over our businesses, over our lives, and it won't change. It won't go back unless we speak out about it.
I agree. Agreed 100%. All right, let's talk about your other involvement. So we talked about the Colorado Regent. By the way, what's your biggest accomplishment? What are you the most proud of as serving as a regent for 6 years?
Well, I was a warrior for keeping college affordable and making sure that everyone who wanted to go to college in Colorado or wanted to go to University of Colorado could. I was also a warrior for free speech. I think it's incredibly important right now, and especially on college campuses where a lot of voices are being shut down. I did my darndest to be just an advocate for students who didn't feel heard, for faculty who were trying to speak out. We sponsored many debates at CU with really feisty conversations to model collaborative, feisty conversation. It's okay to disagree. That's part of who we are as America, and that's part of the college experience. And so I tried to encourage that as well.
I love it. Great. Good for you. All right. The other philanthropy activities that you're doing or the things that you're involved with, right? So you have the SheFactor, right? And then you have also the Moms Fight Back and the Fight Back Foundation. So tell us about those foundations.
Yeah, so SheFactor, I started with my daughter. It's to help young women create a life they love, specifically women in their 20s. After they get out of college, just helping them set goals, figure out how to find work-life balance, how to honor what they want to do, the intent for their lives, and help them be bold and strong about that. So I wrote a book called The SheFactor that's great for the young women in your life. And then there's a methodology they can use through an app, through a website, through our social media to actually create the life they love and to get support around that. So it's a super fun project, and we're just ramping things back up after COVID. We do a lot of live events, so that was a bit crazy during COVID. We had to move to digital, but we're coming back now.
Absolutely. So can you give us a little bit of an inside scoop or inside story about the methodology? What does that methodology consist of?
Sure. So there are certain silhouettes that just kind of define who you are, similar to like a disc or strength finders, but we created one specifically for young women. So I am a dreamer. I'm very visionary, a big thinker, and that kind of directs how I run my life, right? As a business person, as a mom, et cetera. And so it's important to know kind of what attributes your personality has and how you fit into the business world. Then you figure out what your archetype is, or your silhouette, as we call it. And then there are certain spheres in your life that you can set goals around. It might be flame, which is your significant other, finance, freedom, future, which is your career goals, faith. There's many different spheres. And so we help you set goals in each of those spheres and balance them. And then you set goals and you hold yourself accountable to those goals in those certain spheres. And we call that scoring system your SheFactor. So it's actually a factor, a number that you hold yourself accountable to meeting. And you're your only scorer, so there's nobody being judgmental about it, but it helps you stay on course to create the life you love. And then we have chapters and support systems to help you do so, and other women who are committed to doing the same.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And you started with your daughter, with your oldest daughter?
Yes.
Nice. That's great. Okay, that's the SheFactor. What about I mean, like the things that you just accomplished and the things that you are creating to make this a better world is absolutely incredible, Heidi. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, totally. So let's talk about Moms Fight Back. What is that all about?
So Moms Fight Back is a way to organize moms to support issues that are affecting our kids, specifically around child abuse, teen suicide, family court reform. There's various issues that we address, but we just were able to help pass a law called Julie's Law here in Colorado to educate judges and court advocates on child abuse and domestic violence. So that's one example of something we would organize moms to do. And we had tons of moms testify and really advocate for the change. Also been very involved in drug addiction for kids, and just there's a lot our kids are facing right now. And so it's a way to give moms tools and resources and avenues to help and support on issues that you don't necessarily post about on Facebook, really tough stuff. And these moms are warriors, and they're making a big difference. And Marilyn McLean heads up Moms Fight Back Now. We've got a great Facebook page if anyone wants to join, and it's going national. So would love to have the moms in the group go check it out.
Absolutely. And we'll include all those links in the show notes, because I think it's very important. So even if you're listening to us and you're not a mom, you should forward it to somebody who is a mom, because I think it's very important that those things get spread out, and we actually, because this is our tomorrow, right? This is our future. And then we have the Fight Back Foundation.
Yes, so the Fight Back Foundation was started a long time ago, but its effort was to help encourage entrepreneurship in young students and children, so that they got excited about it. And we had a competition a couple of years in a row that gave awards out to people who were creating companies that would help children. And actually some high school students won one of the awards. They developed mental health crisis centers within high schools called Oasis. And that's an example of the work Fight Back does. Now Fight Back is launching a new project called Rocky Mountain Voice that's going to create a nonpartisan news outlet in Colorado to bring some balance to the media here, and to support some entrepreneurs who want to do that. Wow,
amazing. So let's talk now about, I mean, it's obviously it ties into this foundation, but it's your passion of creating the entrepreneurial spirit in young adults, or kids, so they can actually grow up and be entrepreneurs. Because I'm with you, we have to have entrepreneurs in our economy, because that's what makes us so unique, and that's the free enterprise that we all want to see continue, right? So what do you think is lacking in our educational system as it is, in terms of educating or promoting young adults to become entrepreneurs?
Well, I think it boils down to critical thinking skills, and making sure that our children are learning how to think for themselves and not be taught what to think, but how to think, and being taught confidence and the ability to be bold and have grit, and not rely on anyone but themselves to create a life they love, and to be adventurous, and to go out and have big dreams. I think the reason we have such high suicide and mental health problems in kids, one of the reasons is because they've lost hope. They don't have big goals. They don't have big dreams. And without that, it's very depressing and sad. And it's easy to slip into using drugs or screens or other methodologies to make yourself feel good. And so one of the things I like to inspire in our children is think big, dream big. What big things can you accomplish in life? And then go for them. And it's hard. Yes, it's a lot of work, and you have to get good education. You have to have good people around you that will support you and encourage you. But that's part of why America is such a special place, because we can do anything here. As a child born in America, you have a blank slate. You can accomplish very, very big things. The education system is failing our children that way right now. Right here in Colorado, 60% of our kids in the education system, K through 12, can't read, write, or do math at grade level. So where I come in on that is school choice. You've got to give parents and families and students different options, charter schools that focus on entrepreneurship, or private schools, scholarships to private schools. We have to help our teachers have more flexibility in the public school system to teach and be creative and be innovative. And there's a lot of work to do there, but that's one of my big passions, why I ran for regent, why I ran for governor. I truly believe it starts in the education system and in families and parents encouraging their kids to think big.
Absolutely. And that was actually my next question, because, us as parents, we have a big influence on our kids, right? So what would you recommend to parents that are listening to us right now? Like, how can they encourage that entrepreneurial spirit, and how can they encourage their kids to think big and really accomplish their dreams?
Well, don't rely on the schools to do it for you, and don't rely on the screens to do it for you. I know it's very, very difficult to get our kids off the screens, but take them outdoors, take them on an adventure, take them to learn about history, go to DC, go to your local capital, go to a business and ask for a tour, explore, be adventurous. Spend time with your children talking about how important America is and our history and our founding principles. Introduce them to a veteran. Let them talk to a veteran who's been to war and talk about how important it is to keep our dream alive here. Teach them about socialism and the dangers of different types of structures of government, and make sure that they understand that that freedom isn't a given, that you have to fight for it, that every generation has to fight a new battle, and they're going to have a very different battle than we've had. And so we need to equip them with critical thinking skills, with grit, with the ability to push back when they disagree with something, with courage. Those are the skills and values that it's going to take to raise children that have the wherewithal to be entrepreneurs, to go out and do big things in this country.
Absolutely. And I think that as entrepreneurs ourselves, we have the responsibility, whether obviously as parents to our own kids, but also the responsibility of talking about it, right? I mean, creating those, I mean, like in Oregon, I live in Oregon, so we have several foundations and several groups that are encouraging that entrepreneur competitions in high schools in order for kids to learn how to be entrepreneurs. And I volunteered for several of those because I feel like it's important for us to go out there and tell the kids, what does it mean to be an entrepreneur, why they can do it, how exciting it is, and yeah, there are, as you said, there are problems and difficulties, but what doesn't, right? I mean, otherwise it becomes so boring, but it's just encourage them that it's okay to do that and have that critical thinking to overcome problems. If you don't have critical thinking, you just cannot overcome problems, and then it becomes a problem, right?
Yeah, and I would encourage parents to stay involved in the schools, go sit in the classroom, find out what they're learning, what they're not learning. I just hung out with Ben Carson, who ran for president in the last election. One of the most amazing men I've ever met. He's, obviously a neurosurgeon who broke all kinds of barriers in that field. He created a little program called, not a little program, it's growing big, but it's called Little Patriots. And it's amazing videos and content that schools can use, that parents can use to teach our children about our founding principles and why it's so important to know the history of our country. Now, there's bad and good to our history, and it's okay to know both, but it's going to go away if we don't fight for it. So parents, pay attention to what's happening in the schools. Don't rely on your school completely to teach the values and principles and history that we need our children to know. And if your schools aren't doing the right thing, do all you can to find a better option, whether it's a charter school, a home school, micro school, public school, private school, whatever it is that you need to do, because your children are spending a lot of time there and being influenced greatly in the schools. And I think it's very important to pay attention to that.
Absolutely. Heidi, thank you so much for being a guest on this podcast. I mean, the information that you shared is incredible, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners will resonate with it. How can people find you?
Well, I have a website, HeidiGanahl.com. I'm all over social media at Heidi Ganahl on Instagram, LinkedIn, all the different avenues. And then my podcast is called Unleashed with Heidi, and it's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Rumble.
Fantastic. So I definitely encourage our listeners to go and check it out. And if you have any questions, other questions or comments for Heidi, definitely you can let her know. You can leave it in our podcast here and I will relay to her. But this is great advice that no matter what your political affiliation is, you can take it, because us as entrepreneurs, we need to make sure that we are able to continue to operate our businesses and that we have a future, right? Of future entrepreneurs that open business, operate business, and create that freedom that we have that we should not take for granted. So I agree with you 100%. Thank you so much, Heidi.
Thank you so much. Thanks for all the great work you're doing.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.